Please welcome to the show, Buddy Guy.
Hey, George.
How are you?
Good to see you. Thank you.
Welcome to the program. This is a treat.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, man.
Because, you know, when you reach my age, very seldom you see people on music television with wrinkles.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I remember a long time ago, fresh after I had a breakup, you were sound checking at a place, and I happened to sneak in the back and watch the sound check. And it was right at the time when I needed to hear a blues man play the blues. And it was perfect. You know, the book is really cool, especially when you open it up and you paint a picture of, you know, a cotton field back in the day and those photographs that people would see in a museum. And you very well easily say, I could be that young boy in that picture. Do you feel like you've seen a part of America that most people have only seen in photographs?
Yes, but I didn't see it in photographs. I saw it for real.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You have an interesting career, too, though, because for the longest time, I mean, you were a busy man and you worked a lot, but for the longest time, you weren't the guy at the front of the stage.
I was always thought I'm still a little too shy to be the guy at the front of the stage. But I was kind of forced into that. I never planned it to be here answering your questions now. I didn't never think I was good enough, and it's in the back of my head now. I shouldn't be here now. You should have, if they would live in Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Lonnie Johnson, and Robert Johnson and people like that, they could answer your questions, whatever you need, better than I can, because I didn't learn nothing in school. I learned it all from them.
Yeah, but hey, listen, man, you learned it from them. I learned it from you learning it from them. So.
Well, it go on and on like that. But those are the guys who I don't think no one have figured out why did it come from.
What was your experience like? For a lot of people who love the blues, they spend a certain amount of time going through that whole Chess Records collection. You had a bit of a bittersweet relationship with Chess, didn't you?
I didn't care if I ever met Leonard or not, man. I feel Chess is still living. My top of the world was to meet the guys who made the music, not the guys who owned the music, because I understand later on in life, all record companies was doing that too.
Ripping off the musicians.
Yeah, I think Elvis would have probably lived it alone until he found out the Colonel was making more money than he was. So I think that had a lot to do with musicians going into this drinking and whatever other kind of drugs they could use, because you can understand it, man. You have got as famous as Elvis, and you're not a dummy, and find out I went through all of this, man, and this guy here has done made more than me. That's enough to start you to drinking, even if you don't.
That's what gives you the blues then,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, actually, I think he would have played the blues as well as Muddy, or better than Muddy, if he had kept living. But, you know, he was doing Arthur Crudup stuff on some of his first hits anyway, though.
Elvis was, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, you seem to have avoided, and I mean publicly anyway, I don't know if it personally, but you seem to have avoided some of the drug and alcohol problems that you hear a lot about that really took their toll on a lot of people.
Well, you know, back to the cotton field. My grandmother, my grandfather, my daddy's friends, my grandmother's friends, if I act like I was going to do something wrong, if I missed my homework, I got hit all the way home by friends, uncles, and everybody else. My mother had a stroke before she died, and I was living in Chicago. She had a broomstick beside the bed, and that wasn't to sweep the broom. And I remember that today.
I mean, what's so interesting about that era of blues music is that when people talk about it, they always talk about it past tense. They talk about it, the guys who made it. I mean, you and B.B. King are two of the last of the greats that people refer to.
We talk about it all the time.
Do you?
Yeah.
You and B.B. talk about it?
Yeah, he just come into Chicago last month, and he was playing at the House of Blues, and George Benson, a great jazz guitar player, was playing at the Chicago Theater. George Benson called me up and said, "Buddy, you got to fix me some chitlins." You know what those?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you don't know.
I've had them in Helena, Arkansas. I had them in Helena, Arkansas.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, then yeah, you had them if you were down there.
Yeah.
So BB's been on a diet for years, you know, and he's diabetic. So I cooked the chitlins for George, and they both surprised me. Walks into my club. And this huge amount of people hadn't got the word before I did. And I said, oh, my God. So we fixed the table, and I said, George, I got your chitlins here. I said, B, I didn't know you were coming, so I got the gumbo and seafood because I know you can't eat this kind of food. He said, I'll choke you to death if you don't bring me some of those chitlins out here right in front of the stage.
Did you guys just start talking about the old days and the fact that there aren't?
All the time. We do that. You know, I got more experience in that thing than we did. And I was talking to one of your people backstage a few minutes ago. Do you know we learned how to play music because of the love of music, not the love of money. It wasn't no money then. When I came into Chicago to play, I thought Jimmy Reed, Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, all those great blues players, I just wanted to see their home. And when I saw why they was living at, I said, I might well go back and pick some cotton because, you know.
There was no Graceland for them, right?
No. And they were playing in small clubs, and there wasn't no cover charge or nothing. The bottle of beer, I think, was 25 cents when I went there 55 years ago this year. And when they started playing, the beer went up to 30 cents, and they got the 5 extra cents for the beer that you buy.
I want to play you a clip from this network, CBC, a news clip from back, I think it was like 1967 or something. Watch this clip here.
Most excitement in the 3-day festival was generated by the Buddy Guy Chicago Blues Band. The audience danced, sang, and cheered wildly, bringing the group back for 2 encores.
Back in 1967 on CBC when the Buddy Guy's Blues Band played. Do you remember when you first came to Canada?
Yes.
And, like, what was what was the crowd like? Was it different than playing in the States?
The first time I ever saw 30,000 people watching me play. What is this? And we played here, and we played, I think, in Rochester, New York, and Boston. When I got back to my day job, my boss said, just hold it 1 minute. Don't leave here until you teach somebody to drive the truck like you.
You had multiple skills then, didn't you?
What do you know? I was going to go for it and give a chance because I loved to play. I loved the music.
You played so many shows over your career. Do you remember where you were the night Martin Luther King died?
Yes.
Tell me about that night.
New York City. I was playing at the Jimi Hendrix bought the place.
In Greenwich Village?
Uh-huh. I think it's a recording studio now. That's the only place they didn't sell booze that night. And the mayor of the city of New York came out and walked the streets and started calming the riots. And every other club was selling booze, had to close. And they all came there. That was me, B.B. King, Janis Joplin, and everybody else wound up at this big place in the village and played until daybreak, cried and played. Yeah, all night.
What were you thinking?
Why? You know, and that's what time it was then, man. People was just crazy everywhere, you know. My thinking was, don't nobody want to hear the truth. Like Albert King made a record about everybody want to go to heaven, but don't nobody want to die.
Was Jimmy there that night?
No. No, he wasn't there that night.
Did you know him?
Yeah, I had met him. You know, they told me I played Newport Jazz in 1967, and I don't know if you read that somewhere, but he said it because that's the time I met him. I played Newport, and they would always tell me in Chicago, you never will make it unless you play New York. But I thought I saw a better thing here. When I saw the 30,000 people, I didn't see 30 in New York. So when I got to New York, they got that on tape. I got it at my club somewhere where I didn't know who he was, came in with the real tape. And somebody was filming him, and he was asking me could he tape what I was playing. And I could hear.
Hendrix was asking you that.
And I was hear voices. My manager then was Dick Waterman, and he was hollering these status. Jimi Hendrix. I said, I don't want to hear that, man. I'm trying to say they told me if I don't make New York, I never would play, man. I don't want to hear nothing about that. And he came in with the wah-wah pedal and plugged up, and I'm saying, oh, this who this is. You know, that's how I was. It was like a surprise to me, and I'm like saying, okay, this is the guy that I'm hoping to meet one day. And he said, you know, we came in the dressing room, say he had canceled a gig to make sure he catch me.
If you think about, I mean, you are one of those guys, and I would ask the same question to them if they're around, but just the rooms that you were in and the people that you played with, you were a part of what is history. When people talk about the greats, at the time, are you aware this is happening?
No, we didn't think about that because, as I tell you again, we wasn't making any money. I would make enough money to get to New York and to get back. But to look at all those good-looking women watching me play, I was getting paid. I felt like I was getting paid, you know.
For sure.
Yeah.
There's another clip I want to play. I mean, speaking of the great rooms you've been in, take a look at this. I want you to tell me this story here and how this happened.
We were trying to get you to have a sing that. Yeah. Because I heard you. Come on. I heard you singing Al Green. So you done started something. You got to keep it up now. You can do it. Baby, don't you want to go? Same old place. Sweet home Chicago.
You talked about, asking the question why, the night Martin Luther King died, and there you are getting the man that is President Obama to sing, singing a Robert Johnson tune, right? I mean, That's something.
Well, that's a long way from picking cotton, I can tell you that. Yeah, what happened, there was little rumors in the White House that he was going to come up automatically and say that and sing. And I saw him walking off the stage. I said to myself, I may get embarrassed or get thrown out the White House, but I'm going to say something. And 3 days later, BB called me and said, man, you did it. You got him to sing.
What do you think would be the legacy of BB? BB's, he's got the club and he's BB King. He's very gregarious. People love him. What do you think his real legacy is going to be?
If I'm answering you right, there will never be another one. He's like Muhammad Ali and Rocky Marciano and people like that. I mean, you could play. I don't care how well you can play, man, but as soon as that guy hit a guitar, his hands sound like every special effect that Jimi Hendrix come up with. He didn't need that. He got that in his wrist. And I think he's one of a kind that will never be replaced.
What's the legacy of the Rolling Stones, do you think?
Forever and ever. Because they let America know who we were. A lot of Americans didn't know who we was until the Stones and all those British guys just came back and say, matter of fact, they were saying when they was getting famous, it's a British invasion. They would say, wait a minute, now this is Howlin' Wolf or T-Bone Walker or some of his music like that. And that's when people have come to me personally and say, I didn't know who you was until the Stones showed up. And then I went back and found out who B.B. King and Robert Johnson, because Eric Clapton was doing a lot of Robert Johnson and those people's music, and they were saying, this is not mine. Matter of fact, they went back down there, some of those guys were living, and gave them the royalties checks for the songs they wrote.
It's pretty amazing, right?
It was.
Well, the idea that people say that the idea that the blues is dying or dead, how do you feel about that?
Let me give you an example. 20 or 30 years ago, I was checking in a motel in New Jersey because I couldn't afford to stay in New York City. I would drive through the tunnel and get the cheaper one. And a husband and wife was the receptionist, and they saw my ring I had on my finger, said blues. She said, it'll make you cry. I said, oh, yeah? I gave her and her husband 2 tickets to come to the concert, and the next morning they was crying, saying, we danced all night. We thought blues was sad. All blues is not sad. When you hear B.B. King say, I got a sweet little angel, I love the way she spreads her wing. And when I met him, I was looking up in the sky. I said, man, why did you see this at? He said, buddy, that's what you call beating around the bush. You had to figure out what I was talking about.
Well, it's just like you and the Rolling Stones, Shine a Light, when you did the old track. You did, Give Me Champagne When I'm Thirsty.
Yeah, well, that's a Muddy Waters song. Yeah, I don't know who wrote it for him, but, Mick Jagger's crazy about that because, they was into that thing so bad, man, And when you say champagne and reefer, man, he come in, you got to do this. But actually, I wasn't supposed to sing, but not a verse on that. He lost his voice that night. That's what gave me the opportunity to go ahead and sing that whole verse.
That's why you did it? Uh-huh. Well, that's one of the great, Martin Scorsese had that great shot.
They don't give away nothing.
No, the Stones don't.
No, you asked me earlier about they come to my small club in Chicago and tape Muddy Waters and all that for a film similar to Shine a Light. Mm-hmm. And my club didn't hold but 60 people. And they had 58. And my manager brought the other 2. So I didn't get nothing but a shot of Jack Daniels from the manager then. And they told me, and I hope they watch this, they told me, said, well, we're going to pay you for the club. we're going to give you $800. I said, well, fine, and that's good enough. And that's been over 35 years ago.
And they still haven't paid you?
Every time I ask them about that, they look at me and look at his manager and say, you still didn't give him the check?
Man, with interest, you could open a whole chain of clubs.
And it would be so bad if they couldn't afford it, but they can afford it.
No, for sure.
But they've been good to us. You know, I look at that and laugh at it about now. That's not the bad part. I've been asking Keith for it. You see them give me the guitar on the Shining Light.
Yeah.
You know how long I've been asking? My club is full of signed guitars by Eric Clapton, Steve, and all those guys. As soon as I ask them about a guitar, it shows up.
Yeah?
They was the first one I asked for a guitar before I left 43rd Street. Charlie, I got the drums from him about a year and a half ago. I got the guitar from Keith during the Shining Light. Mick still ain't give up nothing. I was on tour with him now, and he had this jacket with the big tongue on the back of it. I don't know if you've seen it or not. And I said, I want one of those jackets. And all these people work with, you know how tight he is. They just looked at you and say, oh, see about it. Let me see Mick. Let me see Mick. So I just walks up to him. I said, I want the jacket. And he starts staring like John Lee Hooker. I just reached and got the jacket and put it on and walked out.
Is that what you did?
Yeah.
What do you in the modern era now, for a lot of young guys, it's the Black Keys and the White Stripes, these two bands that have kind of gone back to bring the blues back. Do you like the modern incarnations of electric blues?
Do you know, I like anything that make me pat my feet. Yeah. I don't have no complaint. And once they said when hip-hop came out, my youngest daughter's in hip-hop. She was out there with Ludacris for a while. Because more people saw her on television than me. Mm-hmm. And I'm divorced now. Her mom looked at me one day, and I was just patting my feet at her stuff. And she said, you know what she's saying? I said, no, I'm not paying no attention to that. I got the beat. And she said, sit down, because I want you to hear what she's saying. So she was playing at the House of Blues, and somebody said, you should go see your daughter. And she said, oh, Daddy, you don't want to come up there. They're too rowdy. You don't want to hear. They don't even act right. You don't want to hear what they're saying or nothing. But she was trying to keep me from hearing what she had to sing. And I walked in the back, and a lot of the people at the House of Blues are my friends. Somebody evidently slipped back and told her.
Yeah.
And she came out, and I can't even say what she said as soon as she walked out on the stage that night. And this standing ovation, I'm like, that's why you don't want me to come see you.
When I interviewed both Bobby Rush and Honey Boy Edwards,
just told me.
Just the year before he passed, or a couple years before, they had said that what they noticed was that when they started playing blues, it was for a predominantly African-American audience, and somewhere along the line that changed. And that they said that the black population in America stopped buying the blues. And Bobby didn't know why. Honey Boy didn't know why. Just all of a sudden, white guys got into the blues, absolutely. So did you notice a shift?
Well, let me get to that when I ask you this first. This is the funny part. Yeah, we were playing for 99.9 or 100% blacks, I would say. And all of a sudden, this late 50s, you would look out in the audience, and there was a white face out there. And the only time you saw a white face in a blues club back then, he was a policeman. And I'd say, well, we got enough money to get the bottle of wine, which was 35, 40 cents. I said, don't pull up the wine because there's a cop out there sitting at the table. And it was Paul Butterfield.
Wow.
Yeah. Michael Bloomfield, some of the other, and finally it was Eric Clapton and some of them said, and I'm like saying, there's a lot of white cops coming in now, man. Because, music comes in all languages, and a lot, and I hate the question, and I get to ask a lot, do you have to be black or came up through the cotton field to be a good blues player? No, just watch people today who's losing the best jobs they ever had, and used to didn't have to look back and worry about what we sang about. I lost my job in the steel mill 5 years ago and can't go back. Ain't no more steel mill. That's not only happening to blacks, that's happening to whites too, man. I read somewhere lately why some airline pilot is a painter now because the airlines laid him off, So this is what we sing about everyday life.
Everybody's got the blues, right?
Everybody got the blues, whether you realize it or not. You got it.
You got to read this book, When I Left Home, My Story. And Buddy, by the way, is touring Canada in September. We have all the dates for you on the website at strombo.com. It's great to see you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Buddy Guy, everybody. We'll be right back.